Doctor, Eleanor Rodriguez had never imagined that her 23rd birthday would be spent on an alien planet. But here she was, checking her medical equipment for the 100th time. The research ship Starlight had been traveling for 6 months to reach Zirion Prime, and now they were finally about to make history. First contact with an intelligent alien species. Elena's hands shook slightly as she adjusted her scanner. She was the youngest member of the team, fresh out of the academy, and everyone was counting on her medical expertise. The planet looked like something from a dream. Purple and pink clouds drifted across a sky that seemed to shimmer with its own light. Strange crystal formations jutted from the ground like giant flowers, and the air itself seemed to sparkle with tiny particles that danced in the breeze. Elena had studied hundreds of planets through telescopes and computer simulations, but nothing had prepared her for the real thing. "Remember, everyone stays calm," said Captain Rodriguez, Elena's older brother who had gotten her this position on the expedition. "We follow protocol exactly. No sudden movements, no touching anything we don't understand, and absolutely no eating or drinking anything they offer us." Elena nodded along with the rest of the team. She had memorized every rule in the first contact manual. Don't point at anyone. Keep your hands visible at all times. Speak slowly and clearly. Let the translators do their job. Simple enough, right? The alien delegation approached from across what looked like a courtyard made entirely of smooth, glowing stones. Elena counted 12 figures walking toward them, all wearing flowing robes that seemed to be made of liquid starlight. They moved with a grace that made Elena feel clumsy in her bulky spacesuit. At the front of the group walked someone who was obviously important. She was taller than the others, with skin that had a beautiful purple tint, like the color of Earth's twilight sky. Strange markings covered her arms and face, glowing softly with a gentle blue light. Her hair floated around her head as if she were underwater, defying gravity in a way that made Elena stare and wonder. "That must be Princess Zerdil," whispered Dr. Kim, the team's cultural specialist. The report said she was young for their species, maybe equivalent to our mid-20s. As the aliens came closer, Elena could see that the princess wore a crown made of what looked like captured lightning. It flickered and danced above her head, casting dancing shadows across her face. Her robes swept the ground behind her, leaving a trail of sparkling dust that faded after a few seconds. The translator devices buzzed to life as the two groups met in the center of the courtyard. The princess spoke first, her voice musical and strange, like wind chimes mixed with a gentle waterfall. Elena's earpiece translated her words with a slight delay. "Greetings, travelers from the distant world called Earth. I am Princess Zerdil of the 4th Dynasty. We welcome you to Zirion Prime with open hearts and curious minds." Captain Rodriguez stepped forward and began the speech he had practiced. "1,000 times, Your Highness, we come in peace from the planet Earth. We bring greetings from all humanity and hope for friendship between our peoples." Elena found herself distracted by the beauty of everything around her. The other aliens in the princess's group were equally stunning, with the same glowing markings and floating hair. Some had skin in different shades, from deep indigo to pale lavender. Their clothes seemed to be alive, shifting colors and patterns. As they moved, the ceremony continued with the exchange of gifts. The humans had brought carefully chosen items, a collection of Earth music, photographs of different human cultures, and a small sample of Earth flowers preserved in crystal. The aliens presented them with what looked like a star captured in a bottle, still twinkling and warm to the touch. Then came the part Elena had been dreading and anticipating in equal measure: the sharing of ceremonial drinks. Dr. Kim had explained that many cultures throughout human history had sealed important agreements with shared meals or drinks. The aliens of Zirion Prime apparently had a similar tradition. Princess Zerdil gestured to one of her attendants, who stepped forward carrying an ornate chalice. It was made of some kind of metal that seemed to shift between silver and gold, covered in intricate carvings that hurt Elena's eyes to look at directly. The cup was filled with a liquid that looked like liquid amethyst, swirling with its own inner light. "This is the ceremonial wine of our people," the princess explained through the translator. made from the fruit of the moon vines that grow only in our sacred gardens. To share it is to show trust and friendship. Elena watched as Captain Rodriguez carefully accepted a small cup of the purple liquid. He raised it in a toast, said something diplomatic about friendship between worlds, and took a small sip. The other team members followed suit, each taking their turn with the ceremonial drink. Elena was so busy watching the ceremony and taking mental notes that she didn't notice the loose stone under her feet. As she stepped forward to receive her cup, her boot caught on the uneven ground. She stumbled, reaching out instinctively to steady herself. Her hand hit the large ceremonial chalice that Princess Zerthil was still holding. The beautiful cup flew through the air, its precious contents splashing everywhere. Elena watched in horror as the purple liquid arced through the alien sky, most of it hitting the glowing stones of the courtyard with a sound like musical bells. Without thinking, Elena dove forward, cupping her hands to catch what remained of the spilling liquid. Her training as a medical officer had taught her never to waste anything that might be important for analysis. Plus, her mother had raised her never to waste food or drink, especially when someone had offered it as a gift. She managed to catch perhaps half a cup of the purple liquid in her cup palms, standing there in front of the alien princess, with purple droplets running down her arms and the entire delegation staring at her in shock. Elena made the worst decision of her life. She drank it. All of it. The liquid tasted like nothing she had ever experienced. It was sweet and tart at the same time, with a flavor that reminded her of starlight and summer rain. It tingled as it went down her throat, leaving a warm sensation that spread through her entire body. For a moment, everything was quiet. Elena could hear her own heartbeat echoing in her ears. The alien princess stood frozen, her glowing markings flickering rapidly between blue and bright white. The other aliens began making sounds that the translator couldn't seem to process, a mixture of gasps and what might have been singing. Then Princess Zerthil's eyes went wide. Her skin began glowing brighter than Elena had seen before, the markings on her face and arms pulsing with an intense light that made Elena squint. The princess opened her mouth and let out a sound that was part scream, part song, and completely terrifying. Wait, you drank my blood. That makes you my mate on this planet. Elena's translator earpiece nearly exploded with the volume of the translation. She stood there, purple liquid still dripping from her chin, trying to process what she had just heard. Blood. That wasn't ceremonial wine. That was actual blood. The courtyard erupted into chaos. The alien delegation began chanting something that sounded distinctly like a wedding song, their voices rising and falling in complex harmonies. Princess Zerthil was still glowing like a small sun, her floating hair whipping around her head as if caught in an invisible storm. Captain Rodriguez was shouting into his communication device, trying to reach the ship. Dr. Kim was frantically flipping through her cultural reference books. The other team members stood frozen, unsure whether to run, hide, or start apologizing. Elena just stood there, feeling the warm sensation from the princess's blood spreading through her entire body, wondering how a simple handshake mission had turned into an accidental alien marriage. The princess stepped closer, her eyes locked on Elena's face. When she spoke again, her voice was softer, but no less intense. You have drunk of my life essence. Human, by the ancient laws of Zerion Prime, we are now bound together until the stars burn out. Elena opened her mouth to explain that it was an accident, that she had only been trying to be polite, that she didn't even know what a mate was supposed to do on this planet. Instead, what came out was a small, squeaky, "oh." And that was how Dr. Eleanor Rodriguez accidentally got engaged to an alien princess and started the most complicated diplomatic incident in human history. Elena woke up in what could only be described as the most beautiful prison cell in the universe. The walls were made of some kind of crystal that changed color with her emotions, shifting from worried blue to confused purple as she sat up in the enormous bed. Golden light filtered through windows that looked out onto floating gardens were impossible. Flowers bloomed in midair. 3 days had passed since the incident, and Elena still couldn't believe what had happened. Every time she closed her eyes, She could hear Princess Zerthil's voice echoing in her head. "You drank my blood. That makes you my mate on this planet," a soft chime announced the visitor. The door, which had no visible handle or lock, simply melted away to reveal Ambassador Keffer. He was an older alien with silver markings that moved slowly across his dark blue skin. Like lazy lightning, Elena had learned that he was something like a combination of lawyer, diplomat, and cultural teacher all rolled into one. "Good morning, Dr. Rodriguez," he said, his voice coming through her updated translator with a slight British accent. Elena had asked about that yesterday, and apparently the translation device was trying to make alien speech patterns sound familiar. To her, "I trust you slept well as someone can sleep when they've accidentally gotten engaged to an alien princess." Elena replied, running her hands through her hair. She had noticed that her hair seemed shinier since drinking the princess's blood, and her fingernails were growing faster than normal. "Please tell me you have good news." Keffer's expression, which Elena was learning to read despite the obvious differences between their species, was not encouraging. "I'm afraid the situation has become more complicated, not less." "Perhaps you should sit down." Elena remained standing. "Just tell me, how bad is it?" "Well," Keffer began, consulting a device that looked like a handful of dancing lights. "The good news is that Princess Zerthil has convinced the Royal Council not to execute you for the grave cultural violation." "There's good news." "Great. What's the bad news?" "The bad news is that she has instead convinced them to begin planning your bonding ceremony." Elena felt her knees go weak and sat down hard on the edge of the crystal bed. "Bonding ceremony? You mean like a wedding?" "More than a wedding, I'm afraid. On Zerion Prime, when two individuals share life essence, as you did when you consumed the princess's blood, they become permanently connected. Your life forces are now intertwined. The bonding ceremony would make this connection official and give you joint rulership of the planet." Elena stared at him. "Joint rulership? I'm 23 years old. I can barely manage my own laundry, and you want me to help rule an entire planet? What you want is becoming less relevant, I'm afraid," Keffer said gently. "The blood bond is irreversible. Princess Zerthil's life essence now flows through your body, creating a connection that will only grow stronger over time. Already, you must be noticing changes." Elena nodded reluctantly. Besides the hair and nails, she had been having strange dreams filled with colors she had never seen before. Sometimes she could swear she heard music that seemed to be coming from inside her own head, and twice yesterday, she had known exactly what the princess was feeling even though they were in different parts of the palace. "This is insane," Elena muttered. "There has to be some kind of mistake, some loophole in your laws." "I have consulted the ancient texts extensively," Keffer replied, his markings shifting to a sympathetic golden color. "The law is quite clear. When someone willingly consumes another's life essence, they are bound together until death. The fact that you are from different species makes no difference. But I didn't know it was blood. I thought it was ceremonial wine. Intent matters less than action in Zerion law. You drank it willingly, therefore the bond is valid." Elena stood up and began pacing around the room. The crystal walls responded to her agitation by shifting to angry red patterns. "What about my brother, my team? Are they okay? Captain Rodriguez and your colleagues are being treated as honored guests. While the diplomatic situation is resolved, however, their status depends largely on your decision." "My decision." Keffer's markings darkened. "Lord Vextar, one of our most powerful nobles, has declared the human bonding invalid. He claims that aliens cannot be bound by Zerion law, and has demanded that you be returned to your people immediately. That sounds reasonable to me. Unfortunately, Lord Vextar has also suggested that allowing aliens to violate our most sacred laws without consequences would be a sign of weakness. He has proposed that if you are not bound to the princess, then you should be punished for the insult to our royal family." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. Punished how? Zerion justice for such violations traditionally involves exile to the void moons, where the atmosphere is not suitable for human life. "So my choices are marry the princess or die on a moon," Essentially, yes. Though Lord Vexstar has also challenged your right to the bonding through trial by combat. Elena laughed, but there was no humor in it. Trial by combat. This just keeps getting better. I'm a medical officer, not a warrior. The combat would be between Lord Vexstar and Princess Zerathiel, fighting for the right to your bond. If he wins, he claims you as his mate instead. Wait, what? Elena spun around to face Kethfer. He wants to marry me too. Not marry, exactly, claim, on Zirian Prime. If someone defeats another person's bonded mate in combat, they can claim that bond for themselves. It's an ancient law that hasn't been used in centuries. Elena slumped back onto the bed, her head spinning. This is a nightmare. I came here to study alien biology, and now I'm apparently the prize in some kind of alien gladiator match. There's something else you should know, Kethfer said softly. Princess Zerathiel has refused Lord Vexstar's challenge. She refused to fight for me. I don't know whether to be insulted or relieved. She refused because she says the choice should be yours. She believes that forcing someone into a bond, even through legitimate combat, goes against the spirit of the law. Elena looked up at the ambassador in surprise. She said that the princess has been quite vocal about your rights in this matter. She has argued before the Royal Council that Earth customs should be considered in any decision about your fate. She even suggested that you should be allowed to return to your people, if that is your wish, despite the blood bond. But you said the bond was irreversible. It is, no matter where you go. The connection between you and the princess will remain. Distance cannot break it, and time will only make it stronger. You will always be able to sense her emotions, her health, her general well-being, and she will sense yours. Elena felt a strange flutter in her chest, like butterfly wings made of starlight. It was followed immediately by a sense of worry and sadness that she somehow knew wasn't her own. I can feel her right now, can't I? She's upset about something. Kethfer nodded. The bond grows stronger each day. Soon you will be able to hear each other's thoughts, share dreams, even share physical sensations. That's terrifying and amazing at the same time. The princess wanted me to tell you that she takes full responsibility for what happened. She knows you consumed her blood by accident, and she doesn't want you to feel trapped by Zirian law. Elena stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the floating gardens where strange, beautiful creatures flew between the aerial flowers. What's she like? I mean, really like? All I know is that she's a princess and apparently willing to fight alien nobles for my honor. Princess Zerathiel is considered one of the most intelligent members of the royal family. She has spent years studying other cultures and pushing for reforms that would modernize Zirian Prime. Many of the older nobles consider her too progressive, too willing to change ancient ways, including Lord Vexstar, especially Lord Vexstar. He represents the traditional faction that believes Zirian should remain isolated from other worlds. Your rival, and especially your bond with the princess, threatens everything he stands for. Elena turned back to Kethfer. What happens if I agree to stay? To go through with this bonding ceremony, you would become co-ruler of Zirian Prime. With all the responsibilities that entails, you would also complete the blood bond, which would extend your lifespan to match the princess's. Zirians live for approximately 800 Earth years. 800 years? The bonding process would gradually alter your biology to be compatible with hers. You would retain your human appearance and basic nature, but you would gain some Zirian abilities and longevity. Elena felt that strange flutter in her chest again, followed by a wave of hope that definitely wasn't coming from her own emotions. Somewhere in the palace, Princess Zerathiel was feeling optimistic about something. I need to talk to her, Elena said suddenly, face to face. Before I make any decision, I need to understand who I'm supposedly bonded to. Kethfer smiled, his markings shifting to pleased yellow patterns. I believe that can be arranged. Elena's first real conversation with Princess Zerathiel took place in the royal gardens, surrounded by flowers that sang in harmony with the alien sunset. The princess had arrived without her usual royal robes, wearing instead a simple dress that seemed to be made of woven starlight. She looked younger somehow, and definitely nervous. I owe you an apology, the princess said. settling gracefully onto a bench made of what looked like crystallized music. What happened to you is my fault. I should have been more careful with the ceremonial cup. Elena sat down beside her, close enough to notice that the princess smelled like rain and lightning. It was an accident. We both know that, but the consequences are real, whether we intended them or not. Zerdil gestured to her arms, where the glowing markings were pulsing in sync with Elena's heartbeat. I can feel your emotions. You know, right now, you're confused, scared, but also curious. That's definitely accurate, Elena admitted. This whole situation is beyond anything I ever imagined. A week ago, I was just a medical officer excited about visiting an alien planet. Now I'm apparently engaged to alien royalty and caught in the middle of some kind of political crisis. You're not caught in the middle, Zerdil said softly. You are the crisis, or rather, our bond is. Elena turned to face her. Kefra mentioned that Lord Vexstar represents some kind of traditional faction. What's this really about? The princess was quiet for a moment, watching the singing flowers as they shifted through colors Elena had no names for. Zirian Prime has been isolated from other worlds for over 1,000 years. We've had no contact with alien species, no trade, no cultural exchange. Many of my people believe this isolation has made us strong and pure. And you disagree? I think isolation has made us stagnant. We've stopped growing, stopped learning. When we first detected signals from your world 50 years ago, I was fascinated. I studied your languages, your cultures, your sciences. I pushed the Royal Council to make contact. Elena felt a sudden rush of warmth that she realized was coming from the princess. You wanted to meet humans. I wanted to learn from them, from you. Your species has accomplished so much in such a short time. You've overcome wars and diseases and divisions to work together. You've reached for the stars. Zerdil's eyes met Elena's, and Elena felt her breath catch. I never imagined I would be bonded to one of you. How do you feel about it, honestly? The princess smiled, and Elena felt an answering flutter of happiness in her own chest. Honestly, terrified, and excited in equal measure. The bond allows me to sense your thoughts, your character. You're brilliant, kind, brave. You risked your career to come to an unknown world just to learn about other forms of life. How could I not be honored by such a bond? Elena felt her cheeks burning. I'm not brave. I'm scared out of my mind most of the time. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite fear. You're here, aren't you? Talking to me, trying to understand a situation that most people would run from. Before Elena could respond, an alarm began sounding across the palace grounds. It was a deep, resonant tone that seemed to come from the crystal structures themselves. Zerdil jumped to her feet, her relaxed demeanor instantly transforming into alert vigilance. What's that? Elena asked. Standing as well. Emergency signal. Something's wrong. The princess touched a crystal embedded in her bracelet, and it flared to life with urgent red light. Elena watched as symbols flashed across its surface. It's a message from the Royal Council. Lord Vexstar has made his move. What kind of move? He's declared a formal challenge to the Royal Council's authority. He claims that my bonding to an alien has compromised my ability to rule, and demands that the Council remove me from the line of succession. Elena felt her stomach drop. Can he do that? If he can prove that I'm unfit to rule, yes, and he's brought allies. The princess's markings were now flashing rapid patterns of red and gold. We need to get back to the palace. The council is being forced into an emergency session. They ran through the crystal corridors of the palace, past startled servants and confused guards. Elena's new enhanced senses allowed her to keep pace with the princess's longer stride, though she still felt clumsy compared to Zerdil's natural grace. The council chamber was in chaos when they arrived. Elena counted at least 30 alien nobles, their various robes and markings creating a kaleidoscope of color and light. Lord Vexstar stood at the center of the room, his imposing figure draped in robes that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. His skin was deep purple, almost black, and his markings pulsed with angry crimson patterns. Princess Zerdil, he said, his voice carrying clearly across the chamber. How convenient that you arrived with your alien pet. Elena felt a surge of anger that was definitely her own this time. I'm not anyone's pet. No. Then what are you? A human who has violated our most sacred laws, corrupted our princess with alien contamination, and now dares to speak in our royal council? That's enough, Vexstar. Princess Zerthil stepped forward, her own markings blazing with defensive light. Dr. Rodriguez consumed the blood by accident, and I will not have her insulted in my presence. Your presence, Lord Vexstar's laugh was like breaking glass. You forget yourself, child. You are no longer fit to rule Zirian Prime, the Ancient. Laws are clear. Any member of the royal family who bonds with an alien species forfeits their right to the throne. Those laws were written 1,000 years ago when we had no contact with other species. Zerthil replied, times change. Laws must change with them. Laws are laws. Vexstar's voice boomed through the chamber. Would you abandon every tradition, every custom that has made Zirian great, just to accommodate your alien infatuation? Elena felt the princess's anger and frustration through their bond, but also something else, determination. My bond with Dr. Rodriguez represents the future of our people, a future where we learn from other species instead of hiding from them, a future where we contaminate our bloodlines with alien DNA, a future where we abandon our heritage. For the sake of alien approval, Vexstar gestured dismissively at Elena. This human cannot even understand our most basic customs. How can she help rule our world? Because, Elena said, stepping forward before she could lose her nerve. Sometimes an outside perspective is exactly what you need. The chamber fell. Silent Elena could feel dozens of alien eyes focusing on her, and her heart hammered so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. But the warmth flowing from Princess Zerthil through their bond gave her courage. You're right that I don't understand all your customs, Elena continued, but I understand science. I understand medicine. I understand what it's like to work with people who are different from you to solve problems that none of you could solve alone. The human speaks wisdom, said an elderly counselor Elena hadn't noticed before. Her markings were silver and moved in slow, hypnotic patterns. Perhaps we should listen. Listen to an alien? Vexstar snarled. Has the entire council lost its mind? The alien has a name, Princess Zerthil said coldly, and she has as much right to speak here as any bonded mate of the royal family. She is not bonded until the ceremony is complete, Vexstar replied, and I hereby formally challenge the validity of this so-called bond. I demand trial by combat to determine the true mate of Princess Zerthil. I told you before. I will not fight for someone's right to choose their own mate, the princess said firmly. Then you forfeit by default, and I claim the human as my mate. Like hell you do, Elena said, her fear suddenly transforming into blazing anger. Nobody claims me. I'm not a prize to be won in some medieval tournament. Lord Vexstar's eyes narrowed. You dare refuse a challenge issued under Zirian law. I dare refuse to be treated like property. Elena stepped closer to him, ignoring the fact that he was twice her size and surrounded by supporters. If you want to challenge someone, challenge me directly. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Princess Zerthil grabbed Elena's arm. Elena, no, you don't understand what you're saying. I understand perfectly. Elena looked around the chamber at all the staring faces. I may not know your customs, but I know when someone is trying to use those customs to hurt people I care about. You would fight me yourself? Vexstar asked, and Elena could hear the surprise in his voice. If that's what it takes to prove that nobody owns me, and that Princess Zerthil has the right to make her own choices, then yes, Elena. The princess whispered, he'll destroy you. Zirian combat is not like human fighting. He has abilities. You can't imagine. Elena turned to look at her bonded mate, and for the first time since this whole mess started, she felt completely certain about something. Maybe, but I won't let him intimidate you out of the throne just because you're bonded. To me, if that makes me unfit to be your mate, then at least we'll know. Princess Zerthil stared at her for a long moment, and Elena felt a wave of emotion through their bond so complex she couldn't begin to sort it out. Pride, fear, love, amazement, terror, and something that might have been hope all mixed together. Very well, Zerthil said finally, turning back to face Lord Vexstar. Dr. Rodriguez accepts your challenge on her own behalf, but she fights as my bonded mate, with all the rights and protections that status provides, including, said the elderly counselor with the silver markings. Elena had never been in a fight in her entire life. The closest she'd come to combat was a heated argument with her brother about who got the last piece of birthday cake when they were 12. Now she had less than 3 days to learn how to fight an alien warrior who had been training for combat since before she was born. The training room in the royal palace looked like something from a science fiction movie. The walls were covered in what appeared to be liquid metal that could reshape itself into any training equipment needed. Princess Zerdil stood in the center of the room, no longer wearing her flowing royal robes. Instead, she had on a form-fitting outfit that seemed to be made of the same material as the walls, shifting and adapting as she moved. First lesson, the princess said, gesturing for Elena to approach. Zerian combat is not just about physical strength. It's about using your life energy, your bond, and your environment to your advantage. Elena looked around the room nervously. My bond? You mean our psychic connection? Exactly. During combat, bonded mates can share strength, speed, even thoughts. Lord Vexstar will be fighting alone, but you'll have access to my abilities through our connection. That seems like cheating. Princess Zerdil smiled, and Elena felt a wave of affection through their bond. It's not cheating if it's part of the legal combat rules. Vexstar is counting on you not understanding our customs. We're going to use that against him. The next few hours were the most physically demanding of Elena's life. The princess taught her basic defensive moves, how to roll and dodge, and most importantly, how to open her mind to their psychic connection. It was harder than it sounded. Every time Elena tried to reach out mentally to the princess, she got distracted by her own thoughts or fears. Stop thinking so much, Zerdil said for the 10th time as Elena failed to sense an attack coming from behind. Trust the bond. Trust me. Elena wiped sweat from her forehead and tried again. This time, instead of thinking about what she was supposed to do, she just focused on the warm feeling in her chest that told her the princess was nearby. Suddenly, the world seemed to slow down. She could sense movement behind her, could almost see through Zerdil's eyes as the princess moved to test her awareness. Elena spun around and successfully blocked the gentle tap that would have landed on her shoulder. I did it. You did it, the princess agreed, her markings glowing with pride. Now let's see if you can do it when you're tired, scared, and being attacked by someone who actually wants to hurt you. By the end of the first day, Elena could barely walk. Every muscle in her body ached, and she had bruises in places she didn't know could get bruised. But she had also successfully completed several combat exercises that would have been impossible without the psychic bond enhancing her reflexes. In awareness. The second day brought weapons training. Elena had expected swords or spears, but Zerian weapons were unlike anything from Earth. The princess handed her what looked like a staff made of crystallized lightning. This is a resonance blade, Zerdil explained. It responds to the wielder's life energy and can cut through almost anything, but it requires perfect mental focus to control. Elena hefted the weapon, surprised by how light it felt. The crystal surface was warm to the touch and seemed to pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat. How do I turn it on? You don't turn it on. You become one with it. The princess demonstrated with her own blade, and Elena watched in amazement as the crystal staff began to glow and extend into a weapon that was part sword, part energy beam. Feel the weapon's resonance. Let it match your life force. It took Elena 6 hours to produce even a flickering glow from her blade. By the time she managed to extend it into a proper weapon, her head was pounding from the mental effort. But when she finally succeeded, the feeling was incredible. The blade felt like an extension of her own arm, responding to her thoughts as naturally as her own fingers. Impressive, said a voice from the doorway. Elena turned to see Keth for entering the training room, his silver markings shifting to pleased patterns. Most Zerians take weeks to master their first resonance blade. The bond helps. Princess Zerdil explained. Elena can draw on my experience with the weapon. Speaking of the bond, Kethfer said, his expression growing serious, there have been developments. Lord Vexstar has been gathering support among the traditional nobles. If Elena loses the combat trial, he plans to challenge the legitimacy of the royal council itself. Elena felt the princess's alarm spike through their connection. What does that mean? Civil war? Zerdil said quietly, he's using our bond as an excuse to divide the kingdom between those who support change and those who want to maintain the old ways. Elena sank onto a training bench, the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders like a lead blanket. So if I lose this fight, I don't just lose you, I start a war. You won't lose. The princess said firmly, sitting beside her. I won't let you. How can you be so sure? Because I've been watching you for 3 days now. You've learned in hours. What takes most people months, you've faced every challenge I've given you without backing down. And more than that, the princess paused, her markings shifting to soft pink patterns Elena had learned meant deep emotion. I've felt your heart through our bond. You have a strength that Lord Vexstar can't understand. Elena looked into the princess's eyes, seeing her own reflection in their alien depths. What kind of strength? The strength to choose love over fear, to fight for others instead of yourself, to see possibility where others see only problems. Zerdil reached out and took Elena's hand. Vexstar fights for power, for tradition, for his own pride. You'll be fighting for something much more powerful. What's that? Hope. The hope that two different species can understand each other. The hope that change doesn't have to mean destruction. The hope that love really can bridge any gap, even the gap between worlds. Elena felt her heart skip a beat, loved the princess's markings shifted to deep purple, and Elena could feel her nervousness through their bond. I know it's fast. I know this whole situation is crazy and complicated and not what either of us planned. But what I feel for you through this bond, it's not just gratitude or political alliance. It's real. Elena stared at her, processing the words. 3 weeks ago, she had been a single medical officer whose biggest romantic concern was whether to ask out the cute engineer from the navigation department. Now an alien princess was telling her she was in love with her. The strangest part was that Elena could feel it was true. Through their psychic connection, she could sense the depth of Zerdil's feelings. The way her presence made the princess feel complete in a way she never had before. And if Elena was being honest with herself, she felt the same way. This is insane. Elena said softly. Completely insane. The princess agreed. I'm a human from a tiny planet in the middle of nowhere. You're alien royalty. True. We've known each other for less than a week. Also true. I accidentally drank your blood and now we're psychically bonded for life. All technically accurate. Elena looked at their joined hands, human and alien, and made her decision. I love you too. The princess's markings exploded into brilliant patterns of gold and silver, and Elena felt such a surge of joy through their bond that she actually laughed out loud. Really? Really? Which is why I'm going to win this fight tomorrow. Not for politics or tradition or pride. I'm going to win. Because I want to spend the next 800 years figuring out what it means to love an alien princess. Princess Zerdil leaned forward and kissed her, and Elena discovered that alien kisses tasted like starlight and felt like coming home. The third day was spent in final preparations. Elena practiced with her resonance blade until she could activate it without thinking. She learned to sense attacks through the bond even when blindfolded. Most importantly, she and the princess practiced fighting as a unified team, sharing thoughts and movements until they moved like two parts of the same person. That evening, as Elena tried to calm her nerves before the big fight, she received an unexpected visitor. Captain Rodriguez, her brother, was escorted to her chambers by palace guards. Elena, he swept her into a hug that nearly cracked her ribs. Are you okay? We've been worried sick. I'm fine, Diego. Better than fine, actually. Elena pulled back to look at him. How much do you know about what's been happening? Enough to know that my little sister has gotten herself engaged to alien royalty and is about to fight some kind of duel for the fate of an entire planet. Diego shook his head. Mom always said you were too curious for your own good. Elena laughed. Mom also always said I should follow my heart. And your heart is telling you to marry an alien princess and become co-ruler of a planet you'd never heard of. A week ago, Elena thought about Princess Zerdil, about the way their bond made her feel complete, about the possibility of spending centuries exploring the universe together. Yeah, it really is. Diego studied her face for a long moment, then nodded. Then I guess I'm about to get an alien sister-in-law. Just promise me you'll be careful tomorrow. I promise, Elena said, though they both knew it was a promise she might not be able to keep. That night, Elena dreamed of flying through space alongside Princess Zerdil. Their hands joined as they soared between stars that sang with voices like crystal bells. When she woke, the arena of truth was carved from a single massive crystal that rose from the center of the royal city like a frozen flame. Elena stood at the entrance, wearing armor that felt lighter than her regular clothes but was supposedly stronger than steel. The resonance blade hung at her side, its crystal surface warm against her hip. Thousands of Xerian citizens filled the arena's curved walls, their glowing markings creating patterns of light that shifted and danced like aurora. Elena had never seen so many aliens in one place, and the sight was both beautiful and terrifying. Remember, Princess Zerdil said, adjusting Elena's armor one final time. Vexstar will try to separate us. He knows our bond makes you stronger. Stay close to me mentally, no matter what happens physically. Elena nodded, though her mouth was too dry to speak. Through their psychic connection, she could feel the princess's confidence mixing with her own terror, creating a strange cocktail of emotions that made her feel slightly dizzy. Lord Vexstar entered from the opposite side of the arena, and Elena felt her courage falter. He looked even more imposing than before, wearing armor that seemed to absorb light and carrying a weapon that crackled with dark energy. His supporters in the crowd cheered with voices that sounded like thunder. Citizens of Xerian Prime, announced the elderly counselor with silver markings, her voice somehow carrying clearly throughout the massive arena. Today we witness a trial by combat to determine the validity of the bond between Princess Zerdil and the human Elena Rodriguez. The challenger, Lord Vexstar, claims the right to dissolve this bond by force. The defender, Dr. Rodriguez, fights to maintain her chosen bond and her right to self-determination. Elena drew her resonance blade, and it flared to life with brilliant white light. Vexstar's weapon responded with a pulse of crimson energy that made the air itself seem to burn. Begin, the counselor commanded. Vexstar moved faster than Elena had thought possible. One moment he was standing 20 feet away. The next his blade was sweeping toward her head with enough force to split stone. Elena barely managed to dodge, rolling to the side as his weapon carved a glowing trench in the arena floor. Too slow, human. Vexstar snarled, spinning to face her again. Your alien contamination hasn't made you strong enough to face a true Xerian warrior. Elena tried to respond, but he was already attacking again. This time she managed to get her blade up to block his strike, and the collision sent shockwaves through the arena that made the crystal walls ring like bells. The impact drove Elena to her knees, her arms shaking from the effort of stopping his blade. Through their bond, she felt Princess Zerdil's alarm and immediately drew on their connection. Strength flowed into Elena's muscles, speed into her reflexes, and suddenly she could move like the alien warrior she was fighting. She rolled backward, came up in a fighting stance, and launched her own attack. Vexstar's eyes widened as Elena's blade met his with equal force. Impossible. You're only human. I'm bonded, Elena replied, pressing her attack. That makes me more than human. For several minutes, they fought across the arena floor in a display that had the crowd alternately cheering and gasping. Elena discovered that fighting with the psychic bond was like having a perfect partner who could anticipate every move. When Vexstar attacked from the left, she somehow knew to dodge right. When he tried to trip her, she leaped over to sweep without thinking about it. But Vexstar was experienced in ways that no amount of bonding could instantly overcome. He began using techniques that Elena had never seen, creating illusions that made it hard to tell where he really was, generating energy blasts that forced her to constantly dodge, and slowly wearing down her strength through pure endurance. You Fight well for a contaminated alien, Vextar said as they circled each other, both breathing hard. But you cannot win. I have trained for centuries. You have trained for days. Elena felt her confidence wavering. He was right. She was already getting tired. While he seemed to have endless energy, through the bond, she sensed Princess Zerathiel's growing worry. Maybe, Elena replied, trying to buy time to catch her breath. But I have something you don't. What's that? I have something worth fighting for. Elena reached deeper into her bond with the princess than she ever had before. Instead of just drawing on Zerathiel's strength, she opened her mind completely to their connection. Suddenly, she wasn't just Elena fighting alone. She was Elena and Zerathiel, to minds working as one, to hearts beating in perfect rhythm. The change was immediate and dramatic. Elena's blade blazed brighter than the arena's lighting, and when she moved, she seemed to flow like liquid light. Vextar's next attack, which should have overwhelmed her, was deflected so easily it looked effortless. What sorcery is this? Vextar demanded, launching a series of strikes that Elena countered without seeming to think about them. It's not sorcery, Elena said, her voice carrying harmonics that hadn't been there before. It's love. The crowd fell silent as Elena pressed her attack. Every move was perfect. Every strike calculated not to cause unnecessary harm, but to disable her opponent. She wasn't fighting with anger or hatred, but with the absolute certainty that she was protecting something precious. Vextar began to falter. Under her assault, his dark energy weapon flickered as his concentration broke. For the first time in the fight, he looked uncertain. This isn't possible, he growled, falling back toward the arena wall. Humans are weak. Inferior? You cannot defeat pure Zerian strength. I'm not pure anything, Elena replied, her blade weaving patterns of light that forced him to defend desperately. I'm human and Zerian and something new that you can't understand. With a final, brilliant flash, Elena's blade swept past Vextar's guard and came to rest at his throat. The dark energy weapon fell from his hands, its light dying as it hit the crystal floor. The arena erupted in cheers so loud that Elena's ears rang. Through the bond, she felt Princess Zerathiel's joy like a sunburst in her heart. But Vextar wasn't finished. You may have won this battle, he snarled, glaring up at her from where he knelt, but you'll never be accepted. You're an alien abomination, and your children will be mongrel freaks that belong to neither world. Elena felt a spike of anger, but also something else, pity. You know what your problem is, Vextar? You're so afraid of change that you can't see the good in it. Yes, I'm different. Yes, our bond is something new. But new doesn't mean bad. She stepped back and lowered her blade. I'm not going to hurt you. That's not who I am. And it's not who Zerathiel is either. We're going to build a future where different species can work together. Where being unique is celebrated instead of feared. Elena turned away from the defeated lord and walked to where Princess Zerathiel waited at the edge of the arena. The princess's markings were blazing with joy, and when Elena reached her, they embraced in front of the cheering crowd. I love you, Elena whispered, not caring who heard. I love you too, the princess replied. My brave, impossible, wonderful mate. The bonding ceremony took place 3 days later. Broadcast across both Zerian Prime and Earth, Elena wore a dress that seemed to be cut from captured starlight, while Princess Zerathiel's robes shifted through every color Elena had ever seen, and several she was pretty sure didn't exist on Earth. The ritual itself was beautiful beyond words. Elena and Zerathiel stood in the center of a circle of crystal, formations that sang in harmony as they exchanged vows. When they shared the final ceremonial drink, Elena felt their bond complete itself with a sensation like lightning made of pure joy. Captain Rodriguez walked his sister down the aisle, tears streaming down his face as he officially welcomed an alien princess into their family. Elena's parents attended via hologram from Earth, her mother crying happy tears while her father tried to look stern and failed completely. As the ceremony concluded and Elena officially became co-ruler of Zerian Prime, she felt a strange tingling sensation throughout her body. The bonding process was beginning the gradual transformation that would extend her lifespan to match her mates. allowing them centuries together among the stars. Any regrets? Princess Zerathiel asked as they stood on the palace balcony later. That evening, watching the first joint human-Zerian space mission launch toward distant stars, Elena considered the question seriously. A month ago, she had been a simple medical officer with a quiet life and predictable future. Now she was an alien queen with psychic abilities and extended lifespan, and responsibilities she was still learning to understand. None, she said firmly, taking the princess's hand. This is the greatest adventure I could ever imagine. Their bond pulsed with shared contentment as they watched the spaceship disappear into the star-filled sky. Around them, the palace gardens bloomed with flowers that sang lullabies in languages from both worlds. 6 months later, Elena stood in the same spot, watching construction crews from both planets working together to build the first interspecies research station. Her transformation was progressing smoothly, and she had already begun to show some of the enhanced abilities that came with Zerian biology. More importantly, their marriage had inspired dozens of other cross-species relationships. Elena and Zerathiel had become symbols of unity and progress, proving that love really could bridge any gap, even the vast distances between worlds. What are you thinking about, Zerathiel?